Peking, January 7, 1937. Pamela Werner pedals away from an ice rink, promising to be home for dinner. By morning, she is dead beside the old city wall, and the investigation that follows will leave every suspect unproven. This is the unsolved murder of Pamela Werner. Pamela Werner was 19, the adopted daughter of retired British consul and sinologist E.T.C. Werner. She had grown up between cultures in a city divided by nationality, law, and power. To understand why her case failed, begin with Peking itself. The protected Legation quarter stood beside Chinese neighborhoods governed by different authorities, with political tension pressing against every boundary. E.T.C. Werner had adopted Pamela from a Peking orphanage in 1919. Her biological parentage remained unknown, but Werner raised her as his only daughter after his wife died. Pamela spent part of her school life in Tianjin. She returned to Peking for the late 1936 holiday period, entering a city only months away from Japanese occupation. Foreign accounts later emphasized bars, brothels, and opium dens beyond the diplomatic enclave. That atmosphere shaped later books, but the character of a neighborhood cannot identify a murderer. Around 3 that afternoon, servant Ho Ying saw Pamela at the Werner residence. Pamela said she would return for dinner and asked for meatballs and rice to be prepared. Later accounts placed Pamela with her friend Ethel Gurevich, then at tea and the French Embassy skating rink. Lilian Marinovsky was also there that evening. At about 7:30, Pamela left alone on her bicycle, carrying or wearing her skates. It is the last widely accepted sighting of her alive. Pamela never reached home. Werner sent Ho Ying back toward the rink, then searched near the Legation quarter and city wall as the winter night deepened. Accounts differ over Werner's precise route and how long he searched. Those inconsistencies deserve notice, but they do not prove that he harmed his daughter. On the morning of January 8th, a body was found in a ditch beside Peking's old city wall. Clothing and personal belongings helped identify the victim as Pamela. Contemporary reports described severe injuries and a badly mutilated body. The details are not needed here. What matters is that medical accounts treated her death as homicide. Pamela's jewelry and watch were reportedly still present. That made simple robbery less persuasive, but untouched valuables could not reveal the killer's motive. The exact discovery point remains disputed. Paul French later placed it by the Fox Tower, while another trail of contemporary reports located it inside the wall and nearer the Werner home. That disagreement changes possible routes, police jurisdiction, and the distance from Pamela's home. It is why the safest description is simply a ditch beside the old city wall. Later writers argued that little blood at the ditch meant Pamela had died elsewhere and been moved. Without the complete scene record, that remains a plausible inference, not a tested conclusion. Reports described fatal head trauma and further injuries inflicted around the time of death. Later summaries disagree about their exact sequence and what medical knowledge they required. Some accounts treated the injuries as proof of anatomical skill, but a reported pattern cannot identify a doctor, surgeon, soldier, or ritual group, especially when the original autopsy report is unavailable. Contemporary reports also raised the possibility of sexual assault, while other accounts said the damage prevented certainty. The record supports only this. Assault was reported and disputed, not proved. The evidence was already becoming indirect. Newspapers carried leaks and summaries, but the complete autopsy, scene photographs, and original exhibit files have not surfaced in the reviewed record. Then the investigation met Peking's invisible borders. Chinese police controlled the scene, but questioning foreign residents or searching foreign premises could involve another authority entirely. Chinese authorities led the inquiry because the body was found in Chinese territory. British and Tientsin investigators became involved because Pamela was British, and foreign witnesses fell beyond easy reach. Later accounts name Chinese police work under Han Shi-ching and British or Tientsin investigators Richard Dennis and R. Botham. Their cooperation existed, but so did legal and political friction. Those barriers help explain why the inquiry struggled. They do not prove that British officials protected a killer, just as missing files do not automatically prove a cover-up. An inquest opened under Nicholas Fitzmaurice and was adjourned while medical evidence was gathered. Reports say the most sensitive testimony was heard privately, though details soon reached newspapers. One early suspect was a foreign man called Pinfold. Investigators examined blood-like marks on items associated with him, including a knife and clothing or boots. Pinfold was detained and released. Later accounts say the marks were animal blood, but the original laboratory record is missing, preventing either a definitive clearance or a cover-up claim. American dentist Wentworth Prentice was also questioned. He said he had not treated Pamela recently and had attended a cinema on the night she disappeared. The cinema alibi would become central decades later. In 1937, however, no surviving physical evidence placed Prentice or any other named suspect with Pamela after she left the rink. The investigation kept moving, but every promising path ended in uncertainty. No weapon was identified, and Pamela's bicycle and skates were not recovered in the surviving accounts. By June, later summaries say Fitzmaurice closed the inquiry with an open finding. It named no offender and produced no public charge. The official wording was person or persons unknown, possibly Chinese. The final phrase reflected official uncertainty. It did not establish the nationality or identity of Pamela's killer. For the authorities, the case was effectively over. For Werner, it was only beginning. He wrote to British officials, hired informants, and spent years trying to construct the investigation he believed police had abandoned. Werner's letters crossed oceans and accumulated inside Foreign Office files. The surviving paper trail preserved accusations, tips, and changing suspicions that the original police record did not. The UK National Archives catalogue lists a 1939 file titled China, Murder of Pamela Werner, under reference FO 371-23513. A separate file dates from 1943. Yet Werner's dossier was never a neutral case file. It reflected a grieving father who paid underworld informants, followed rumors, and reportedly shifted his suspicions over time. His persistence made his suspicions unusually visible to history. Visibility is not reliability. A preserved accusation remains an accusation unless independent evidence supports it. Decades later, writer Paul French found roughly 150 pages of Werner's notes at the National Archives. They became a major foundation for his book, Midnight in Peking. French combined those papers with newspapers, archives, interviews, and historical reconstruction. His answer centered on Prentice and a group of expatriates living around Peking's foreign underworld. French argued that Pamela was lured into the district later called the Badlands, assaulted and killed during a struggle. He presented the later injuries as an attempt to misdirect suspicion. The theory connected real features of the setting: vice, privileged expatriates, legal barriers, and impending war. It supplied a powerful story for why the investigation failed. But a story can explain too much. French's reconstruction depended on details later researchers disputed, and it had no surviving physical evidence placing its named group with Pamela that night. Archival critics challenged two key supports. They argued that contemporary cinema listings allowed Prentice's claimed late screening, and that a dental receipt linking him to Pamela dated from 1930, not late 1936. Those objections weaken French's theory, but they cannot mathematically prove Prentice innocent. The honest conclusion is narrower. French attributed the crime to the group. The available evidence does not establish it. That should have narrowed the mystery. Instead, another researcher proposed a completely different suspect and read the same history as evidence against the expatriate conspiracy. Graeme Sheppard, a retired Metropolitan Police officer, re-examined Werner's letters and archives across several countries. His reconstruction rejected the elaborate group theory in favor of a lone offender. Sheppard proposed Han Shouqing, a young Chinese acquaintance and former suitor of Pamela, as the most probable suspect. He did not produce a charge, confession, or forensic identification. The proposed motive combined romantic rejection with resentment toward Werner, who was said to have confronted Han violently. Sheppard interpreted the crime as personal vengeance rather than organized conspiracy. The attraction of this theory was simplicity. Han belonged to Pamela's social world, and a local attacker required fewer unseen participants than a protected expatriate group. Yet simplicity is not proof. No surviving physical evidence, eyewitness account, or police file places Han at the ditch, and his movements that night remain unknown. The interpretation of the crime as symbolic revenge is behavioral and cultural inference. It may create a motive, but it cannot turn probability into identity. Two major books had now produced two incompatible answers. French looked toward protected expatriates. Sheppard looked toward a Chinese acquaintance. Neither could cross the final gap from theory to proof. Other explanations circulated: Japanese retaliation, political mistaken identity, Werner himself, or an unknown local offender. Each theory found suggestive details. None found decisive evidence. The Japanese retaliation claim reportedly passed through Sir Edmund Backhouse, a man exposed as a fraud in other historical matters. A later Foreign Office reference shows the theory circulated, not that it was true. Then war overtook the investigation. Japanese forces occupied Peking in July 1937, scattering witnesses, disrupting institutions, and beginning years of upheaval that fragmented the surviving record. War helps explain why witnesses and files disappeared from view. It does not prove that every missing report was deliberately destroyed to protect someone. The surviving chronology shows the widening gap. Murder and inquiry in 1937, a Foreign Office murder file in 1939, another file in 1943, then decades of private reconstruction. That is why this case can feel solved while remaining legally and historically open. A compelling reconstruction supplies motive and sequence. It cannot replace physical evidence or a complete investigative file. Even the basic physical story has open questions. The exact discovery point is disputed. The original medical report is missing, the weapon is unidentified, and Pamela's route after the rink is unknown. Modern researchers have continued finding material. Beijing Postcards says it located previously unused Chinese police reports and newspapers, but the project's claim of discovery does not validate every conclusion drawn from them. No official source located through August 11, 2026 confirms a reopening, charge, conviction, or definitive identification. The latest strong comparative reporting still describes Pamela's killer as unknown. The responsible verdict is not that French solved it, Sheppard solved it, or officials concealed the answer. It is that every named perpetrator theory still depends on evidence the surviving record cannot supply. Pamela Werner was murdered after leaving the rink on January 7, 1937. The inquiry failed to identify her killer, and later, books could not prove one. Which theory best explains the evidence without claiming more than the record can bear? Thanks for watching. If this case stayed with you, there's another one waiting on screen. Subscribe for a new case every week.